Gu Yunjing stood before me, tall and straight in his dark blue official robes. The warmth that once lingered in his eyes when he looked at me was gone, replaced by a cold, unguarded indifference. There was not a trace of guilt. He held a draft of the household decree in his hand, his fingers pressing so hard that the rice paper crumpled. His thin lips parted, and he spoke the words that would make all of high society in the capital mock me and trample my dignity. Qin Yan. Yuan has always been frail. She has followed me for years without any title or recognition. Enduring so much hardship, I have decided to elevate her to my principal wife. From today onward, you will step down in rank and serve as my concubine. Demoting one's wife to a concubine. 4 simple characters, yet each one stabbed straight through the heart. I was the eldest legitimate daughter of the imperial chancellor, married with full rights, 3 letters and 6 etiquettes. A grand procession of 10 miles of red dowry. I entered the Gu household as a lawfully wedded principal wife, bestowed with an imperial title and recorded in the court registers. Back then, Gu Yunjing was nothing but a poor scholar from a humble family. He had failed the imperial exams, had no money to his name, and was scorned by all. I insisted on marrying beneath my station, braving the censure of the entire court. I used half my dowry from the chancellor's manor to pave his way and mobilized my father's connections in the imperial court to push him step by step from a failed examinee to the high office of censor-in-chief. On our wedding night, he held my hand with sincere, earnest eyes and swore an oath of eternal devotion, that he would never take another wife, that we would share glory and hardship alike, through storm and calm. I believed that vow for 3 full years, until his childhood sweetheart and lost love, Jiang Ziyuan, returned to the capital and everything changed. In my previous life, on this very day, he had said the exact same words. I panicked, readied. I questioned him about his broken promises, abandoned all dignity to beg and plead, burned with jealousy, and antagonized Jiang Ziyuan at every turn, throwing the Gu household into chaos. But my hysteria only deepened Gu Yunjing's disgust. He shielded Jiang Ziyuan and accused me of being jealous, petty, and utterly unworthy of a matriarch's bearing. I was left to guard an empty main courtyard, a wife in name only, consumed by inner torment day after day as I watched him dote on Jiang Ziyuan. In the end, I fell ill from grief, and at just 25, I died alone in a cold, forsaken side courtyard. Only in death did I finally see the truth. He was never heartless, it was simply that his tenderness, his devotion, his steadfastness were never meant for me. To him, I was nothing but a stepping stone for his Rizia tool with status, money, and connections to smooth his path to power. And now, I opened my eyes to find myself back at this very moment, the moment Gu Yunjing uttered those words to demote me to a concubine. The dull ache from my past life still lingered in my chest, but it vanished in an instant, replaced by a barely concealed ecstasy and relief deep within my eyes. How wonderful! He was finally letting me go. I had long grown weary of this sham of a marriage, tired of clinging to a heart that would never love me, tired of managing the Gu household's endless affairs, tired of watching his eyes look right through me. As a principal wife, I had to uphold virtue, preside over domestic matters, be magnanimous, manage the inner quarters, and tolerate his love for another, all a gilded cage. But as a concubine, I could shed every burden of the matriarch. No more keeping up appearances, no more playing the virtuous wife. I would bide my time, seek a divorce, and walk out of this gilded prison with all my dowry intact, free and clear. Gu Yunjing saw that I remained silent for a long while. His hands, hanging at his sides, tightened slightly. He had braced himself for every possible reaction from Medir's accusations. Reijan had even mustered a measure of impatience in advance. In his mind, I, the proud legitimate wife, possessive and headstrong, would never accept such humiliation so easily. So he softened his tone slightly, offering a condescending gesture of appeasement, even believing himself to be generous and tolerant. I know this is unfair to you. It is indeed humiliating. From now on, I will ensure your food and clothing are provided for, at the same standard as before. I will not neglect you. But Yuan has been frail since childhood, with a chronic heart condition that flares up often. She cannot bear the slightest slight or cold shoulder. The position of the Gu family's principal wife must be hers. There is no room for negotiation. Beside me, my personal maid, Wan Sue, trembled with rage and stepped forward to speak for me, but I raised my hand and gently held her back. I looked up at Gu Yunjing. There was no sadness on my face, no anger, no trace of the hysteria I had shown in my previous life. Instead, I curved my lips into a faint smile, my voice calm and obedient. I hear you, my husband. I agree. Gu Yunjing froze, his brows knitted tightly, and his eyes filled with shock. He had braced himself for tears, for accusations, for threats involving Chancellor Manner's influence, for pleas on the verge of death, but never for this. Never for such quiet, immediate acceptance. He even caught a fleeting glint of relief in my eyes, a lightness I couldn't quite hide. For a moment, he felt an inexplicable emptiness, as if something he had held firmly had slipped through his fingers. A strange unease spread through him, but he refused to dwell on it, convincing himself that I had simply been crushed into submission, too defeated to fight back. Pushing aside his doubts, he said flatly, "It's good that you can be reasonable. In 3 days, I will welcome Yuan into the household with the highest rights and formally install her as my principal wife. Your imperial title will be revoked." He paused, then added, "You may go." With that, he did not spare me another glance. He turned and strode out of the main courtyard. His steps hurried, his mind already racing to the woman waiting for his comfort. Watching his resolute back, I let the obedient smile fade from my face, replaced by sheer relief. Wansue's eyes were red with tears. She clutched my sleeve, her voice low and filled with anguish and disbelief. "Miss, you cannot agree to this. You are the Chancellor's legitimate daughter, an imperial bearer of a noble title. Demoting a wife to a concubine is a disgrace to your family and a trampling of your dignity. Once word gets out, every noble lady in the capital will mock you. The Chancellor's centuries-old reputation will suffer. The master has been so ungrateful and forgetful. You have so many advantages. Why not fight back? Why not even argue?" I turned to my loyal maid and said gently, "What use are tears? What use is a scene? His heart is no longer here. The more I cling, the more pathetic I become. This is freedom. To cling to someone who does not love you is the truest humiliation." Now that he had shattered this marriage with his own hands, I would simply go along with the current and walk away. Not long after Gu Yunjing left, Jiang Ziyuan, dressed in plain colors and looking pale and delicate, arrived at my courtyard as expected. She had always been skilled at playing the victim. Gentle brows, soft steps, a fragile figure that looked as if the wind might knock her over. She curtsied slightly as she entered, her eyes brimming with poorly hidden smugness, though her mouth dripped with feigned guilt. "Sister, it's all my fault. If I hadn't returned to the capital, my husband would never have troubled you, much less made this decision to hurt you so deeply. If you are upset, please, blame me. Do not bottle it up and harm yourself." Textbook hypocrisy. First play the victim, then pile the blame on oneself, all while subtly bragging about Gu Yunjing's unique devotion, reminding me that the position of the Gu matriarch was now hers. In my previous life, those words would have set me ablaze with rage. I would have called her out on her pretense, scolded her, and given Gu Yunjing the perfect excuse to accuse me of bullying the weak, further souring his view of me. But in this life, I saw through her game and played along. I grew even more docile and courteous, even inclining my head slightly in return, my tone distant and polite. "Miss Jiang, you need not blame yourself. Marriages are fated. My husband's heart is where it belongs, and I have no intention of standing in the way. You and he have been close since childhood, true love that should rightfully come to fruition. I wish you both happiness." The smile on Jiang Ziyuan's face froze for a second. She clearly hadn't expected me to be so magnanimous, so utterly out of step with the script she had written in her head. She had come specifically to watch me break down, to see me jealous and miserable, to witness the proud legitimate daughter grovel in pain, all to feed her own long-held need for validation and superiority. But my calm composure, My untroubled expression, not a hint of anger or resentment, left all her carefully rehearsed lines hanging in the air. It was like punching cotton. Frustrating and unsatisfying. Unwilling to leave empty-handed, she pressed a hand to her chest, furrowed her brows, and coughed delicately. Exaggerating her frailty to provoke Gu Yunjing's pity, she pushed further, feigning grievance. Sister, you truly don't resent me. I know it's wrong of me to take your husband in your place, but I truly cannot bear to be without brother Yunjing. I don't resent you. I cut off her performance, my tone sincere, without a shred of pretense. I truly wish you both well. You suit each other perfectly, and I meant it. I didn't resent her, I was grateful. If not for her return, I might have stayed trapped in this hollow marriage. Unable to wake up. Just then, Gu Yunjing returned. He had worried about Jiang Ziyuan and come back to check on her. He walked in to see her frail, guilt-ridden expression and then looked at me quiet, obedient, and utterly unthreatening. The last shred of doubt in his heart dissolved. In his mind, I had finally accepted where his heart belonged and stopped clinging to the past. He looked at me with a trace of condescending approval and an air of cold indifference. It is good that you have learned to be so sensible. Stay quietly in the western side courtyard. Keep to your place. And do not provoke Yuan or harass her in private. Not a word of apology. Not a trace of guilt. As if stripping me of my title, demoting me to a concubine, and trampling my pride were simply the natural order of things. I lowered my gaze and nodded in submission. Playing the part of a woman who had given up all resistance. Only I knew the truth. My obedience was all a mask. Since he wanted a grand wedding, a glorious title for his beloved, and all the pomp and circumstance, I would give him exactly that. I would personally arrange the most magnificent wedding in the midst of its greatest splendor. I would walk away for good. The next morning, I sent word to the front courtyard, notifying Gu Yunjing that I was handing over all management of the household finances and affairs. I also offered to take on the full responsibility of planning Jiang Ziyuan's wedding. The news rippled through the entire Gu mansion. Servants gathered in hushed groups, whispering and gossiping. Some said I had been so foolishly devoted for 3 years that I had lost my mind from heartbreak. Others said the chancellor's daughter, for all her proud lineage, had bowed down in humiliation and become the laughingstock of the city. Still others quickly switched allegiances, ingratiating themselves with the soon-to-be mistress, Jiang Ziyuan, while cold-shouldering me, the fallen matriarch. All the gossip reached my ears. But I remained unmoved. The more they mocked me for being weak, the sweeter the shock would be when I made my grand exit. Wan Sui fretted day and night, pleading with me, "Miss, you mustn't do this. If you personally prepare his wedding, everyone will say you're groveling. It will disgrace the chancellor's manor. The master has wronged you so terribly, why go to all this trouble for him?" I flipped through the wedding ceremonial lists while calmly directing servants to make purchases, not even looking up. The grander the wedding, the more extravagant and glorious, the sweeter my departure will be. I brought out my finest brocade and silks, retrieved the best gold and jewelry from the storerooms, and even sent my personal dowry shop staff to urgently sew the bridal gowns, decorate the wedding hall, and finalize the procession arrangements. I saw to every detail myself, making sure the ceremony adhered to the highest standards befitting a principal wife. Not a single corner was cut. When Gu Yunjing learned of what I was doing, he was stunned again. He came to the side courtyard, his expression complicated. "Why are you going to such lengths to prepare my wedding? Do you truly feel no bitterness at all?" I looked up at him with a proper, impeccable smile. My husband has found the one he loves. That is a joyful occasion. As someone who has been part of this household, it is only right that I do my best to wish you and Miss Jiang a blissful union, harmonious for all the years to come. My blessing was sincere, without a hint of sarcasm. Gu Yunjing stared into my clear, placid eyes, empty of any resentment, and for a rare moment, guilt flickered in his chest. He began to wonder if he had always been biased against me, assuming I was proud and jealous, forever targeting the fragile Jiang Ziyuan. Yet here I was, far more magnanimous than he had ever expected. The guilt passed quickly. overridden by his devotion to Jiang Ziyuan. He took my behavior as final acceptance and softened his tone, offering a faint apology. "You've been wronged. Your household allowance will remain the same. I will also visit you occasionally and ensure the servants do not neglect you." I smiled coldly inside but nodded obediently on the surface. No need to visit. No need to care. From now on, we would owe each other nothing and I would never see him again. What he didn't know was that I wasn't preparing this wedding out of generosity. I was biding my time to reclaim everything that was mine and humiliate him in the most public way possible. Using the daily preparations as cover to move in and out of the storerooms, I began quietly and systematically retrieving all my dowry assets. When I had married into the Gu family, I had brought with me thousands of acres of fertile land, 27 shops, countless gold and jewels, 3 suburban estates, and half of the Chancellor's collection of rare antiques. All of it was registered in the official marriage contract, legally and entirely my personal property, under the laws of the Great Li dynasty. My husband's family had no right to touch or seize any of it, but over the past 3 years, Gu Yunjing had quietly embezzled most of my shop revenues under the guise of managing the household. Altogether, the amount came to over 100,000 taels of silver. He had used every coin to build political connections, host banquets for his colleagues, bribe his superiors, and secure his rise to censoring-chief all on the foundation of my family's fortune. In my previous life, I had been too blinded by love to ever check the accounts. I died in that cold courtyard without ever knowing the truth, having given everything to fund his career and his happy life with his true love. This time, not a single coin. Under the pretext of accessing the storerooms for wedding supplies, I reviewed the dowry ledgers one by one. I found all the records of Gu Yunjing's unauthorized transfers and withdrawals, and collected them as evidence. I secretly contacted the steward of the Chancellor's manor and had them quietly move my treasures, antiques, and silks back to my family home, leaving no trace behind. I was meticulous and discreet, avoiding all of Gu Yunjing's trusted servants. Every transaction trail was erased. Wan Sue, helping me count the assets, finally understood my plan. Her worry melted away, replaced by admiration. "So this is what you've been plotting all along, miss. You were never giving in, you were taking back everything that's yours and leaving for good." I nodded, running my fingers over the complete dowry inventory. My voice was cold. "He wants my title and his beloved's grand wedding, I'll give him that. But my money, my family's property, not a single coin will he keep." He had used me to climb the ranks, consumed 3 years of my youth, and trampled on my sincerity and dignity. I would not leave empty-handed. Money was my security. With all my dowry reclaimed, I could live freely and comfortably for the rest of my life, never needing to depend on any man. In just 2 days, I secretly recovered every last piece of my dowry. The Gu family's storerooms were now stripped of all my private property, but Gu Yunjing, busy with wedding preparations and dreaming of his beloved, had no idea. On the eve of the wedding, Jiang Ziyuan visited my courtyard once more. This time, she had shed some of her fragile demeanor. There was a smugness in her eyes, the confidence of a woman about to become the new matriarch, but she still put on a humble front, pretending to come and apologize. She brought a bowl of soup under the guise of making amends. Her posture was meek and deferential, but her eyes gleamed with triumph. With the wedding so close and my title already revoked, she was just one step away from securing her position. She no longer feared me, the former legitimate wife. She had come to gloat, to see my hidden grief and despair, and to savor her final victory over me. In my previous life, seeing her like this would have ignited my fury. I would have knocked the soup bowl from her hands, started a fight, and earned myself a reputation as a jealous harridan. But now, watching her pathetic act, I only found it laughable. I didn't take the soup. I looked her in the eye, my tone flat but piercing. "Miss Jiang, you don't need to keep up the act. We both know the truth. You have never been the innocent, self-sacrificing woman you pretend to be. From the day you returned to the capital, you have played the victim in front of Gu Yunjing, whispering poison and pushing relentlessly all to take my place. Isn't that right? Jiang Ziyuan's face went white. Her fingers clenched her sleeves, and for a moment she panicked before regaining composure. Sister, what are you saying? I have never had such intentions, whether you have or not. We both know. I cut her off coldly, without mercy. But I don't care anymore. You want my husband, my title, everything I haughty give it all to you. I will only remind you of this. If Gu Yunjing could cast aside his rightful wife and demote her for you today, he can do the same to you tomorrow for someone else. The love and status you win today may one day turn against you tenfold. These were not words of jealousy, just objective truth. A man who could betray his wife and break his vows was, by nature, selfish and fickle, never truly faithful to anyone. Jiang Ziyuan's face flushed red and pale by turns, her mask of gentility crumbling. She set down the soup bowl in haste and fled the side courtyard in disgrace. Wan Sui couldn't help but exclaim, "Miss, she came to provoke you. But you utterly demolished her." I laughed softly, my eyes calm. I just told her what her future holds. I have no desire to fight her. She isn't worth it. I never cling to those who don't belong to me. On the day of the wedding, the entire city was abuzz. The Gu mansion blazed with red silk from the main gate all the way to the inner hall. The bridal procession stretched 10 blocks long. Drums and gongs sounded from dawn until noon. Guests flooded in, colleagues from the court, noble families, dignitaries all in attendance. Gu Yunjing had spared no expense, using most of his official salary to give Jiang Ziyuan a wedding that far exceeded what a third-rank official's wife would receive. He wanted to make up for years of longing and proclaim to the city that she was the only one in his heart. Yet among the guests, the talk was all about the absurdity of the marriage and the wife who had been cast aside. Everyone waited for me to hide in my cold side courtyard, to nurse my wounds in solitude. They expected me to be the saddest backdrop to the happy scene. The abandoned wife replaced by the new love, the biggest joke of the capital's elite. Many noble women whispered to one another, lamenting that my brilliance and lofty lineage had still failed to keep a man's fickle heart. But no one expected what happened next. Just as the auspicious hour approached, I stepped out of the side courtyard in simple white robes and walked calmly to the center of the festively decorated wedding hall. The clamor fell silent. Every guest turned to stare. The whispers died. Gu Yunjing, holding the hand of Jiang Ziyuan in her crimson bridal gown and phoenix coronet, frowned at me, assuming I had come to make a scene. His tone was sharp with impatience. "Qin Yan, what are you doing here? Go back to your courtyard at once." Jiang Ziyuan leaned against him, a flicker of wariness and triumph in her eyes, waiting for me to lose my composure in public. Ignoring everyone, I raised my hand and produced 2 documents, the imperial decree bestowing my title as principal wife, and the divorce papers I had written myself. I placed the decree gently on the wedding altar, and my voice rang clear through the hall, reaching every guest. Gu Yunjing, I have not come to cause trouble today, nor am I here out of jealousy. You wanted to demote me to a concubine and elevate your beloved. I have complied. You wanted a grand wedding and all the glory for her. I have prepared it for you, to perfection. I unfurled the divorce document, dipped my brush, and signed my name. Then I slid it across the table to him. The wedding is complete. I have fulfilled my part. Sign this divorce agreement, and from this day forward, we owe each other nothing. Gu Yunjing's pupils contracted. His face was a mask of shock as he stared at me, unable to process what was happening. You want a divorce? He had never imagined I would voluntarily leave. In his mind, if Chancellor's daughter would cling to the Gu family for the sake of my reputation, even as a concubine. Yes, I want a divorce. I met his gaze squarely, without a trace of regret. When you were poor and unknown, I poured my fortune and my family's influence into lifting you to greatness. I did my part. Now that your heart belongs to another and you insist on demoting me, this marriage is dead in all but name. You don't have to struggle with guilt. I don't have to suffer anymore. Let us part ways, and owe each other nothing. Then I had the attendants bring forward the full inventory of my dowry. In a clear voice, I listed every piece of property I had brought into the Gu family 3 years ago, and itemized every account of how Gu Yunjing had secretly used my revenues for his own purposes. Every last coin of my dowry has been reclaimed. From this moment on, I, Su Qingyan, have no ties to the Gu family whatsoever. I wish you and Miss Jiang a long and happy union. The hall erupted in murmurs. Every guest now looked at Gu Yunjing with thinly veiled contempt. Only then did everyone understand. I had never been weak or submissive. I had been quietly walking away all along. Gu Yunjing's face alternated between pale and flushed. Humiliation burned on his cheeks as he stood under the scrutiny of the entire assembly. But worse than the shame was the sudden, overwhelming panic and regret that surged within him. He realized, too late, that I had never been incapable of leaving him. From the moment he uttered those words of demotion, I had already let go and was eager to escape. He stepped forward, reaching out to grab my sleeve. His voice desperate. Qin Yan, why be so ruthless? Even as a concubine in the side courtyard, I could still protect you. Ensure you want for nothing. You don't have to go. I cut him off, a genuine smile of release curving my lips. No need. I, Su Qingyan, daughter of the Chancellor, have a proud spirit. I would rather be free and alone than a lowly concubine. You saw me as a burden and my devotion as worthless, so I will step aside completely. I wish you and your true love a lifetime together. Without another glance at him or the ashen-faced Jiang Ziyuan, I flicked my sleeves and walked out of the lavishly decorated Gu mansion, with Wan Sui by my side. Outside, the sun shone bright and the wind was unburdened. Behind me, the wedding hall blazed with celebration. Ahead of me lay freedom and a wide, open road. He had cast aside his wife for his beloved, thinking he had trapped me, but in truth, he had set free the woman who had once given him all her heart and lost forever the sincere love and unconditional support he would never find again. I smiled through his wedding knot in weakness, but in final release. From now on, he was nothing to me. I would live in splendor, at peace, and never again waste a single moment on a love that only consumed me.